Welcome to this evening. For those that don't know who we are, I'm Fran Roberts.
I'm Jon Roberts.
We both fly gliders.
Are you married?
We are, yes. Good, as far as I'm aware. Both fly gliders, cross country, and really enjoy flying competitions and furthering and enhancing our progress. So our talk tonight is the ultimate guide to cross country. So hopefully you'll learn something. But it's for lots of people. So if you're just new in cross country, you're not quite solo, or you've gone solo and you're just learning how to thermal, to those that really want to start racing and actually winning days.
We'll probably go over a lot of stuff that everyone already knows, but if there's something, hopefully there's something for everyone to take out of tonight and take into their final in terms of cross country.
So the aim tonight: how you can go cross country faster, how you can win days and competitions. Improving your mindset and confidence, we've got a portion on that. So generally we're going to go through how to plan a flight, check net, NOTAMs, pre-flight planning, completing the flight, and post-flight analysis. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. Just out of interest, how many do competitions? How many don't do competitions?
And how many would like to do competitions?
I thought you already did, Darcy. So there's loads to get through, and we've been told we have to be finished by 7:30. So I don't know if someone can just monitor the clock for us. Yeah, okay. So just I always want to start my talks that I do are quite interactive. I don't like just death by PowerPoint. So I want to know where you're at, who you are, what you want to achieve this year potentially. So why you wanted to attend, what sort of drew you to come tonight. So just thought we could go round the room and just say who you are, so we know who you are.
Just a little bit.
Neil, you want to start? Yeah, go on, Neil.
Right, so we fly long time competitions, and I want to attend so that Jon and I can beat Julian.
That's a good aim.
And that's our aim.
That's the goal.
Julian's here.
Should we go round Den?
No, I'm not doing comps anymore. I'll go and retrieve people. But
Okay. Is there anything you want to learn tonight?
yeah, I've probably forgotten most of it, so I just want to
A recap.
reiterate what I've probably forgotten over the years.
Is that right? Martin?
No, I'm just here for the laugh track.
The comedy value.
Yeah.
I've not flown by for about 4 years now. But I will plan to get some.
And your name is, sorry?
Jeff.
Jeff.
I just wanted to hear what you've got to say, having been watching you two being successful in competitions over the years.
I'm Joel. I went solo a couple of weeks ago, so just new really, and I wanted to learn.
Okay, cool.
Interested in getting into comps?
Yeah, he's put his hand up.
Okay. I didn't mess up it.
So I'm retiring from instructing later on this year, so I might actually then be able to go and do some cross-country flying.
That'd be nice.
I'm looking to get my silver this year, and who knows, maybe next year's got polishes or something like that.
Okay, cool. Well, still a lot of planning you're doing a lot in competitions is the sort of thing that would make doing your silver a lot easier, hopefully.
Yep.
Well done.
A little bit of comps, not much. Faster and further.
Faster and further, we can do
Like
that.
Yeah, I'd like to go faster and further, and perhaps do a comp as well, really. So that's one of the things I want to try and do this year.
Okay.
I've been flying comps for longer than I like to remember, and always finishing somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
So I'd like to
Bit
finish
higher.
a bit higher up, and I want to do a 750 this year.
Top 10?
Yeah, top 10 would be great.
Cool. Got to put some goals out there.
Jeff Daly, been flying cross country for a few years. No comps beyond rock polishers. I want to go faster.
Yeah, I'm looking to do my 500 this year.
Nice.
I'd like to know how national team pilots do it.
We all would.
Well, you'll learn some of the tips tonight. Or certainly what we get taught. Chris?
Oh, Selden 66, first comp, 1981.
I was born there.
Anything that you would like to do this year?
Well, I want to get back to winning the odd thing like I used to.
Okay. Like that.
You won one at Bisters a few years ago.
That was 2014, you.
That was 2 years ago.
No, I couldn't have done it without you.
Yeah, Doug, early silver pilot, going to be my first cross-country season this year, and just want to, know how I can maximise that and push on, really.
Okay, cool.
Land out a lot.
Interested in comps or?
Yes, probably, but maybe not this season,
I've done a few comps and I've enjoyed doing it, but the reason I'm here is there was a day at Husbos a couple of years ago when Julian beat me by 13 seconds. And I don't want it to happen again.
So how to shave that 13 seconds
Yeah,
off?
13 seconds.
Yeah,
I'm looking
got
for 13
you.
seconds
Okay.
on every side.
Cool.
Oh, I'm here as a supportive wife and non-glider person, but probably ought to go back up in a glider sometime, just to make sure that I really didn't like it. And,
just to check.
We come to support you because we love John and you, and we'd like to see what you've got to say. I'm sure it'll be really interesting. Thanks. Thank you.
Well, tonight I'm here for G&T.
Okay.
I haven't flown for a long time, so maybe I'll start again, and maybe I won't. I don't know yet.
Okay. Charles, hiding in the back there.
Hi. Just very interested to hear what you've got to say and possibly think about putting a toe in the water and going cross country at some point.
Okay.
Is there anyone else in the back with you?
No.
That we can't
Clive ran
see?
off.
Oh, right.
Do you want to say a bit about yourself?
Hiding.
Where you're at, what you're doing?
So for me, I'm flying the Women's World Championships this year in July. Flew it at Husbos in 2022. Came eighth in 2011. So I'd like to do better than 8th this year. That's my goal. And you?
Cool. I've managed to get lucky and win the club class nationals last year, which was an amazing achievement to have done.
Yeah.
Quite pleased with that. So that's great. And I was managed to get a place in the World's team, which is in Australia in December this year.
Lovely.
And I was very lucky enough to get on a day last year when I managed to. I think I've been told it was the first ever club class dry 750 done in the UK, which is apparently what I've been told.
It's the first ever dry 750. There was a discus did it, but he had water on.
Yeah. And I don't think it was club class, but it is now, I guess.
Yeah.
That was Andy Davis.
That doesn't count.
So that definitely doesn't
It
count.
doesn't count. Okay, so first things first, how to recognise a good cross-country day. What sources that you look at. So personally, I always start with surface pressure charts. The other sites that you can look at, we do, NOAA. People know that site? Yeah. Tepigrams. There's gliding pages. Dave Maston's obviously one of the good ones. There's Sid's page from Nymphsfield, RASP, Skysite, Top Meteo. And I know you guys have like some weather forecasting on the WhatsApp group.
Yeah, Andy Holmes, I think, does a Mind.
Yeah.
So anyone that's looking for good days, that's always a good one. You know how happy Andy Holmes is to send lots of WhatsApp to help.
He's very WhatsApp happy.
He is.
So for those that don't know, this is a surface pressure chart.
And for quite in March.
Is that the latest one?
No, it's 2022.
No, this is one from last year. I mean, I would have done a recent one, but there are actually no good days coming up. So I've used an old one. So, John, you want to...
So this is based on one of those classic sort of polar air mass days you get in the spring. It can be very cold to go flying, but very good at the same time. So yeah, I didn't much talk
Did
about.
anyone fly on that day like a weekend or so ago? It was a really nice polar day.
Well, it wasn't as good as some of them, but it was.
Pretty good for February.
It was good for February. To be fair.
So I think cloud base was like 4,000 feet where we were.
I think it's quite easterly here, so launching was a bit of a...
So does everyone know what they're looking for? Some of the younger people. So what you want is a dry air mass that's pulling up the continent up here. It's coming. It's going to get in a little bit of time.
That's a high you're going round.
Oh, sorry. It's coming up down here. Sorry, that's the one. Yeah, back to the wind. Those on there. Oh, it's a southerly. Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm talking rubbish. How's that polar airless? It's just coming off here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Coming off the continent then.
Yeah.
So this is, I mean, ideally you'd get a good overview. So obviously that's midnight on Sunday, 12 o'clock on Sunday, and midnight on Monday. And actually that turned out to be a nice cross-country day, where quite a few flights were done.
Sunday or the Monday?
The Sunday.
Well, there you go. That's me rubbish.
But essentially, for the newbies, you don't want any of these things in the way because they bring loads of cloud. A nice sort of clear. I mean, there's not going to be a huge amount of wind on a day like that, which is, quite good, especially if you're in a lower performance glider. You don't really want to be pushing into winds. You've not got water on. So something that's quite open, like that. I mean, sometimes there can be sort of clouds that aren't forecast. I mean, like today it was quite clear on the surface pressure chart, but we had a massive blanket of cloud. That kind of thing does happen in the winter. In the summer it's less likely. But clear is good. We'll keep it nice and simple. I'm sure everyone else knows how to read them. But it's just getting in the habit, I think, of actually looking at these every single day. And I do have, I'll put it out on the WhatsApp group. I've got a document with all the links to everything that we're going to show you tonight. So you can just, if you don't know how to get access to these, then it will be on that links page. So then the next thing that we look at and compare is obviously a snap pick. So that was, you can see the time on it. This is SAT24 that I tend to use. And you can see it's nice clear, there's not a lot of cloud. So obviously you can compare the surface pressure chart to then what you're seeing live.
Who here that flies cross country already checks the sat pic just before in the morning and just before you take off again?
Who checks in the morning?
Check in the morning.
Who checks just before you launch?
To see a trend.
Both.
Yeah.
That's always a good tip, just to watch the trend throughout the day and just before you go, if you've got time.
I'm always checking in the
Just to
glider
see what's
just before
going
I'm
on.
about to take off, especially if I'm sat on the grid, because it's always different from when you've checked it at briefing, and you can see how the clouds are developing. So
Or not.
Or not.
Fizzling out.
In fact, launching is
Trend.
blue still.
Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. It's just another little link to your armoury. Yes?
So what are you looking for then?
Yes,
Do you check that just before you launch? What?
If it matches the forecast, or convergence lines, or wave, that kind of stuff, or if there's spread out, or if it's spread out burning back. There's lots of things you can get from a sat pic.
Obviously, SatPic just tells you obviously what's been. It can't tell you what's going to happen, but you can get a good idea of what is potentially going to happen. Because if it's obviously got a lot more cloud and it's 10 o'clock, for example, probably chances are it might spread out.
Yeah.
And then it's going to give you an idea of when to plan your task. But that's quite clear. It's quite late on in the
So I was
day.
going to say, if you saw that, would you be very happy? That's at 1 o'clock.
It's probably all right.
Queue.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's early on in the year, don't forget, so it might take a bit more heating to obviously get to temperature to actually produce the clouds. But also it might give you an idea of where you might choose to task or fly. I probably don't really want to go into East Anglia because it's going to be blue. I might find it a bit more tricky. Whereas, you can kind of aim for being in a bit more of a Q field. So it just, again, but I then go back to the surface pressure charts and try and build a picture in my mind, obviously, of what's happening.
And sky sight as well.
I mean, we are always on our phones just before flight, pretty much. So, looking at trying to still build that picture.
Yeah, and some of the British team guys, they really know how to get the most out of sky sight and the data. I think that really helps a lot of them, from what I've discovered.
I'm amazed it doesn't appear on your LX yet.
You can put it on your Alex.
Can you? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay. It seems an obvious thing to have, actually, is satellite.
Yeah.
stuff onto them.
Yeah. Well, not something like the sat pic, but sky sight. You can find your.
Are you allowed to have that live during the comp day, are you?
I'm not 100% sure you are actually. I don't see it. I don't think you are, but I know it's possible because the guys when they were doing the Perlin project and the Airbus projects coming up, they were using that same program imprinted onto their Alex line.
How do
How
they
do they
know?
prove? How do they check whether you've got that on or not? Because in a way that could be cheating.
I don't know.
You
Yeah.
know.
You got it on
You
your
might
phone,
be
you
allowed to
take
have
your
it
phone with you.
to go to. It's something I've got to look into with them, but you might be allowed to have it before you take off, but you're not allowed to update it in flight. So I think it's what you might be allowed to do.
How would they know?
Because you've probably got a phone card on you or something along those lines.
Any more questions? So in the morning, this is the next thing that I do, is a log on to NOAA. How many people use this before? 1, 2, only 2 people? Yeah. I find this has definitely got more accurate information than things like SkySight, and the models can disagree. But this one I always find this one generally is more, the forecast is always more accurate. So what I see based on then what actually happens, where SkySight can be totally off on some days. But essentially you just get your Latin long, click continue. The link is on the page as well. And then obviously go to sounding, choose the forecast and a date set, and then just click go. And then there's another little bit to fill in and a little code that you've got to put in to pretend that you're
So
human.
would you choose the Latin long of your takeoff location or the centre of the task, the geological centre?
Yeah,
of the
I
task?
do both.
Okay,
so
great.
I would obviously start with the takeoff location,
Yeah.
and then I normally get one of the furthest points away on my task.
Okay.
So let's say I'm from Husbars, or let's say I'm going into East Anglia, I'll go right to the rough Latin long of, where the turn point is.
Yeah.
And just so I can get an overview of, what's forecast. But I mean, just starting with the Latin long of the club is a good place to start.
Which model do you usually choose?
When you select the sounding here, just the 72-hour one, 0 to 72. And then the next page, I haven't got a picture of it, but you can obviously select even more sort of increments. So just play around with it. So again, this is something that I do. I don't 100% sometimes know what I'm doing, but it's more building a picture, so that every time that I do it, I think, oh, what is that going to be? Is that actually what happened? So I kind of build a catalogue in my own mind. And then just, work through it. So I'm not going to talk about tephigrams because that's just going to take way too long. But if you do want to learn, we actually have a 2-hour presentation on tephigrams on the Women Gliding site, where Alison, who's literally, she lectures in meteorology. So she knows everything about everything that there is to know about these. But essentially you can get cloud base, you can see the moisture content, you can see if there's going to be layers of cloud touching, if there's rain, gives you an idea of the wind going up this way. I don't necessarily know how to read them for wave, but you can get all that information off them as well. But yeah, they're really good models.
Chris Gill's got a great presentation on tephigrams for wave.
For wave, there you
on
go.
YouTube.
Cool. So there's that. So then when you know what the weather's doing, obviously pick your day and keep an eye on the weather leading up to it. So I'll be looking at a day at least 5-6 days in advance. And then always have the intention of flying anyway, especially if you're someone that has to take the day off. Just go flying anyway, even if it turns out less than what
It always
you
seems to
thought.
happen the day looks better and it gets not quite as good.
Yeah. That's what I mean, always go flying anyway.
Always deteriorate
Yeah.
as the day approaches.
That's definitely a thing. It's never the other way around.
Never seen it the other way around.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, always go anyway, because again, then you build up a picture of the reality when you're in the air, based on obviously, what you've made on your assessment leading up to the day. So, all building a catalogue in your own mind. I just put this in because it's obvious. Check NOTAMs. Does everyone know where to get a NOTAM from?
Sure.
Anyone doesn't know where to get a NOTAM from? Maybe one. But there's, again, the links are all on the page. For
I've even got the app on your phone, Spine. I don't know if it's the old school. I was talking to Neil earlier about it. But you can still get that app, and it's a really good little app. Well, it's John, wasn't it?
So then determine the flight plans. We've talked about SkySight and RAS. SkySight as well is really good if you're doing an AAT in a competition, because it will literally map out when to start, when's the best area, and what the best area is in the AAT. So I always try and load that up before I then go to the grid. Pick a distance, don't go too big unless you're trying for a badge. There's really no point if you want to get faster. It's better off doing 100k 3 times than doing 500k once, unless you're doing the badge. Improve your XC, between 100 and 300, depending on conditions, and it's good practice for comps. And then you get to experience the weather in different parts of the day. There's a 100k task from here, isn't there?
Yeah, Tim's fine. I think it's 99.8 or something.
So you just do that 3 times if it's a good day. There's a free tool, I don't know if people know about it, CU Cloud. People may or may not have that, but it's totally free to use. and you can plan a task. I pretty much use it every day.
And it
this
shows
year.
the weather, right? As well?
Yeah, and you can load the weather up. So if you don't want to pay for stuff, like SkySight. And then obviously mark your map, which is pretty standard. So this is like how I would mark my map. I use green lines just because it's the only line on the map that isn't. It'll be the only line on the map that is in green. Everything else is a different colour. So if you're using blue or red, obviously they're already coloured on the map.
Is that one of Cloudy's mark?
Yeah. I always mark my airspace like this, or if I don't want to go in it, I fill it in. The wind, and then you've got the task, and then any radio frequencies that you may or may not use.
She's got a lot of information on there.
Is that how I mark mine? I know you just draw a line on yours.
No. I find wing tape's quite easy to write on. Yeah, that's what a lot of people do, is pop a bit of wing tape on.
That's masking tape. Is it not?
Is it?
Yeah, it's not wing tape.
That's wing tape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then we fly the task. So, I mean, every day at the Worlds, for my Worlds last year, we sat down pretty much half an hour, and we just literally looked at the map. What's going to happen?
I come up with a plan, and then she'd fly something completely different.
You know, all that. When's the best time to start? Yeah, and just looking at some numbers, airspace, just everything that you could possibly think about, and you know what was going to happen. This is one thing that John taught me.
Yeah, so a lot of the experienced pilots here probably knows, but it's trying to figure out when you've got, say, a 300k task, knowing when to start in the competition. And a lot of, well, most pilots I'm aware of will always work backwards, and they, in a Met, you regularly get the Met man will always tell you when he thinks the best part of the day. He calls it normally the cut-off, and it's normally working a little bit past then, but the cut-off normally means you've gone past the best part, you know, the sensible racing part of the day. So then I always plan to be on final glide for around that time. Then I look at realistically how fast I think I'm going to go, and that's something you'll need to kind of find what you're where you honestly think the kind of speeds that you can do, or when you're racing and having a bit of fun. From there, then you can work out how long it's going to take your flight, and then when you're going to start. And normal start times in a comp are anywhere between 1 o'clock to about 2:30, 3 o'clock sometimes, isn't it? And the latest I've started is 4:30, I think. And still got around a task in a competition in the UK. But that's, you don't choose to start that late, it's just the way it works out sometimes. And other times it's really obvious when to start because you just get shoveled out the start zone by a shower or something. And that's equally just as good. But yeah, that's...
But I always have one of these charts on the back of my map. So I'm just sad like that because I can't work maths out in my glider, and I don't want to get my phone out to do calculators. So obviously, if you're, you know, you think, oh, maybe I could do 90 kph today, but actually then you're in the start zone and you're getting only like 1-2 knot climbs. Then I'm thinking, oh God, maybe I'm only going to do 60, 70 kph if the weather's like this. So then I've got already the information. So obviously, work out how long it's going to take, when I need to be on final glide, and then you just do the maths backwards to when I need to start by. So then it's just right there in front of me. I'd have to figure it out.
It's not very often when I'm in a start zone that I start much outside of the time when I think I was going to start from the ground. It's normally about 15 minutes either side from when I think I'm going to start to when I actually start. So
is this calculation for a set distance?
Yes. So that's like 150k.
How would you work it out, Dave?
I don't do this calculation.
How do you work out your start time then? You don't want me asking, do you?
I do. I try and compute what's going on and how I'm getting on in the air, and then I have an idea when I would like to start, and then I try and sort of put that that information together and see whether it agrees with my start time, and if it doesn't, then I might bring it forward, or if I'm doing, if I feel I could be doing better, then I will push it back slightly later.
Give it a go later on this year if you're fine. Just try and work backwards. Dominic, do you use this sort of starting? Do you do competition anyway?
I haven't done competition for a while, but I do the same thing when I'm planning tasks. But I try to work out how high I'm likely to be at the end of the day. So
and that's where I
Yeah.
start, and then I work out the length of the final glide. So
Right.
it's still coming from the same place.
Yeah.
And I want to be safely at the top of the climb in time for the final glide before you get in.
So yeah, again,
But
dominant.
that's going for more for distance rather than speed.
Yeah.
Which is the sort of thing I've been doing more recently.
There you go.
So do you use the conditions at the start line, assuming they're indicative of how the whole day is going to compare with what you expected?
Yes, and you can see how the day is shaping up, so then you'll know roughly how it's going to finish, and that will also affect my start time. But generally, it's all I seem to always start around the time when I think I'm going to start on the ground, from working backwards.
Just 40 per hour either side of the start time is half an hour, which is a big chunk of, percentage-wise, it's a big chunk of your cross-country life.
Yes, yeah, it could be, yeah. Yeah.
One would imagine something material would have changed to have gone out of that, which obviously can happen.
Yeah, yeah.
What happens if you're racing?
Tactically, you mean? Well, if you're at a stage, or I'd suggest not to think about, unless you're flying against Julian, how everyone else has started, and try and fly your own flights to begin with in competitions. The tactical stuff comes a bit later when you're really kind of right up in the top end of it, and yeah, how do you feel about it, Fran? Just flying your own
Well,
flights?
tactically, you just never start before everyone else.
Yeah.
Not
always. Not always.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've got to look at the weather. I mean, that we'll talk about John's flight in a minute, but he started first on the first day of the club class, and that's a big risk to start first. Paid off and he won. But it takes a lot of, to start first. But if you've got confidence in the weather, in what you know is going to happen, obviously it becomes a lot easier to make that decision. So, which is why all of what we've talked about just a minute ago, we're doing that all the time to build up that picture, to have that confidence to go, screw everyone else, I'm just going to go first, because I feel like that's the right thing to do. Having said that, I've not had that guts yet, so yeah.
So with a flyable window, you're pushing towards the end of it. So is that the weather generally improves during
Not
the flight
necessarily
before shutting down very steeply? Or?
Well, if it's a 500k, you might be.
Yeah.
They might sell the best part of the days at 4:30, 5 o'clock. So you're still going to be starting relatively early.
Okay.
However, if it's to regionals, where I guess a lot of people will be starting, they might get trigger happy and start launching the grid at 11 on a 200k task, and it's like 300 or 400k weather.
Wow.
And then to get the best part of the day, you've got to hang around and start zone for like 2.5 hours, which I've done before now, but it's.
Yeah, you might not be starting till 2 o'clock.
It gets a bit boring, and you get bugs and loads of other stuff, but it's just nice to be flying.
Yeah.
It's interesting actually. I've never really considered this, and I'm the guy who hates sitting in a start zone with all these other gliders.
Yeah.
And you're really, I mean, it's like dodging some days.
Well, that's where you got to.
So I tend to go off and right, I'm off. I just need to get away from here.
That tends to be, you got to look in a competition. You got to look who the task setter is for the week, and you'll get to vibe who the task setter is, and once you get to know the task setters, you'll know what sort of tasks they're going to set. And in a competition, I like to have the task setter have a day where there's a bit of start line waiting, because that's also a skill for a cross competition pilot to have, to know when to start, and a bit of tactics, like Dave was saying it. And other times when he sets a big task and everyone's got to go, and they're testing your cross country skills as well. I'd like to see competitions where the task setter really challenges the pilots in every department in their flying skills.
I thought from what I've seen, when Dave's been at Husbos, you're in a line, and you can't. You've got to go in that line that you put.
Oh no! You all launch into the air, and then the start line opens, and then you can.
Oh, I see.
You can start like when you want.
And then you can start whenever you like after a certain time.
Oh, I see. Once you're in the air.
That's it. Yeah.
I thought when you leave the ground, you've got to be in the position you put in.
That'd be interesting. That'd be a scrabble for the relight.
Yeah.
Relight.
I can see I'm going to need a two-seater.
So that's some food for thought on when to work out a task and when to start.
So obviously now we know when we're starting. That's when we check the flight, fly the route, and this is where I want to put up John's flight.
That one from the club
Change
class?
laptops.
So when you're also
So there was Fran was talking about a task. I was lucky enough to win the club class on the first day.
It's coming.
I think you may have just you've reset the computer to press the off button.
Just tell them about it.
No, we can wait.
It's alright, we'll take you. Go on, you can set this.
Okay, club class, first day. The forecast was there's high top cover coming in from the west. Task area is okay because the centre's southeast. Yeah, we're friends by the computer.
Where were you flying out of, Joe? Saltby.
It's out of Saltby. If you go to Skyside, Fran, you might be able to pull the flight down on the Skyside. No, we've got the black screen of death.
How big is the task?
Pass, can't remember. And the whole grid launched. Oh, there you go. There we go. I'm just going to do that for a while. My computer's getting very old and can talk.
So you all launched?
Yeah, we all launched, hung around. It was basically 8/8s. And to me, he said, the Met man said, I wouldn't hang about if I were you. And the classic in the start line opens and everyone's hanging about. But I could see what was coming. I felt like it's not so much now, it's right at the end of the flight where it's really going to matter. And if you can get a competitive angle, I feel like in a competition, if you can get that competitive angle where you know you can gain good points, and I find that's a skill is really knowing that moment.
It's all about the points, isn't it, John?
It's about the points and the speed. Oh, that's fine. So it's all about, and for me, I thought they're all gonna start bunch around, and it's possibly a tactical advantage to start straight away, because on the way back, that's where they're gonna struggle. So I made a decision. I started straight away. I was literally the first out, and just tripped around from under 8/8s, just got out into the sunlight. Started picking up, 3.5 knot climbs, and expectedly had a couple of gliders catch me up, and I worked with those gliders. Then coming out of one turn, which I'll show you a bit later on, it's near Market, Downham. I saw the pack coming in, and they were, we're going quick. I'm like, whoa, go. And luckily, as the last turn point, as I turned, I could start to see the high cover then was coming further and further, and was killing a massive area coming north. And have you clicked that?
Yeah, it's doing it, just very slowly.
And I got about 15 k's on the last leg in good weather. And the great thing is, I knew everyone behind me wasn't going to get what I was getting. And that's the one. Oh, go down.
That one.
That's the one, yeah. There you go. And I got really nice and high. It was still a 40k glide I had to do to get to some good weather again. I actually thought I was going to glide into a field from that situation, but as I was gliding around Peterborough area north, just saw some sun on the ground. I thought, well, hang on a sec, this might work, and tried to work it as best I could to really eke the glide out, and then pick a few climbs up at the other side. And everybody else that had done a bit of taxi and started a bit later didn't get the 15k I got in the decent conditions, and that was tactically that's how I managed to win the day, by starting first, which doesn't normally work, but in this situation I think, and I saw the angle.
The gliders that caught you up then, you managed to lose them again then, did you?
Well, they weren't far behind. I still had to fly my butt off to.
They were a lot lower than you though. They had a bit of climbing to do at the end.
Oh, well, no, but
Yeah,
that's because the gap had pulled out because
Yeah.
I'd had good conditions on the last leg.
Yeah.
Johnny, do you think that day was? I mean, it sounds like it was overset. But if you had to start early,
no, it's
and you
perfectly
just
set. Perfectly set.
For you.
They all have a choice. They all have a choice to start.
We landed about half the grid out, I think.
It was about
We landed.
there, weren't you? Yeah, they all hung around, and the Met man said, "Oh, it was Jack." Yeah, he said it's going to really spread. It's going to be horrible. So yeah, that was. I can't stress enough in a competition knowing your tactical advantage when it's presented to you. And me and Julian had a day once, and tactically there's a convergence line coming from the north, and we'd gone to this bit of convergence, got to the turn point and back, and I instantly knew that all the gliders that were behind us weren't going to be able to make it work for them. And as soon as you know you've got a tactical edge, it's just a key part to know it's coming and you can use it. So there's the start zone. As you can see, there's nothing. It was all 8/8s here, and everyone's just about hanging on to blue thermals under 8/8s basically. So I just came up to the start line, which wasn't. There's nothing working in the start zone. Nicked it and came out to where it was sunny, all by myself. And this is where gliders started to catch up with me a bit around here. Ran up to picking them, and then out. And this is where we saw the gaggle coming in. But luckily, I was lucky enough to pick up some really nice climbs. Somebody marked it was in the bell. I can't remember. Marking some really nice climbs. And if I just show the whole early start paid off here. I can't see that. So how high am I there? Can you see the height from? 40. 40 in it. There, so still got a 4.2 knot climb. So the early start, it didn't pay off to begin with, but it sure did pay off on that leg. Nobody got climbs like that. There, and then this is when I'm looking ahead, and it's 8/8 basically again now. That's only 2 points. I was just trying to get to cloud base base. I'm at 5/3. Look. Now look, I've done this was the 8/8, so it's now a 45k glide, and I managed to eat 40-1 out of an LS3, which is pretty cool. So, and it wasn't until about here I realised that there was sun on the ground. And I was like, oh, it might actually, because I assumed I was gliding to a field.
You were climbing.
Yeah.
Can you just indicate where the turning points are?
First waypoint is here.
Right.
Second turn point is here.
I don't know how to read.
Then it was back down to here somewhere. I don't know what it was.
Okay.
And then up.
Right.
And then very nearly, that's quite a strong headwind to plug into. And I had to actually stop just there for 2 turns because I didn't think I was going to get in. So it was a bit of a mess on the final glide. But winning the day was done right at the very start, planning tactically for this good run there. So yeah, that was planning ahead and forethought to what was going to happen. So, there you go. So is that something people do? Is it that to think it like how the final legs are going to go?
It's
or?
interesting to hear your thinking on it, John. As I say,
You've still got to go and act it out, but it's at least it's a plan. As such. That's it.
Questions?
Do you find the function on SkySight that will display how the weather is going to progress on your anticipated
it can do, yeah.
times as you go around?
Yeah. It's something I need to work on better for SkySight, but this was a more interesting day just in the fact that I think the Met man gave enough information to say when it was basically if you don't start now, you're going to struggle on the way back. Yeah.
Johnny, one of the two.
No, not so. Yeah. Turning point behind.
Was the weather shutting down from a specific direction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just 8/8 cloud from the west.
Oh, from the west?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were closer to the shutdown, but the shutdown had got further by the time.
Yeah, it's gone eastwards.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
okay,
everybody
right,
else out.
yeah.
To the talk, please.
Are you comfortable?
So, I mean, for those that are still fresh to cross country, I mean, even some seasoned cross country pilots, I don't see do a lot of this. Like, just take plenty of water and some food. Like, we both have a camelback, loads of snacks, obviously pea bags or nappies if you're a girl, or plumbing. Sunscreen, a coat. I always put like a coat in the back of my glider just in case it rains when I land out. Or any other thing that you might want to do if you do land out. You know, I always take a power bank just in case my phone battery dies, which happens a lot. So we've just got some route planning, live pictures that we want to just talk you through, just to give you some ideas about, you know, what we're looking at. Brentingthorpe. So, I mean, this wasn't a particular day, but it was just a picture that I took, so I thought I might want to talk about it at some point. But obviously you can see as the closer you get to cloud base, it's very, very hard to see the definition of the clouds. So obviously when you're in the thermal and you're climbing up, you know, obviously you want to be thinking about where you're going, what's happening, the next climb that you're going to be taking. But as you get higher up, you can't see. So what would you use instead? Cloud shadow. And you can see it beautifully there. I mean, you can see it on, you know, a good portion of most days, but I mean, it's very defined there. You know, if you were heading in that direction, I mean, you know, you can see loads of kilometres in front of you. So you don't just have to look at the clouds to figure out your route.
Sometimes I find cloud shadow good as well to know if, quite often you'll get up and you think, like, it's a nice street ahead, and you'll look down the cloud shadow and you'll see a gap, and you're like, oh, it's lying to me, it's cloud street is. And so, yeah, sometimes you can suss out streets if it's not quite as good as it might be suggesting, what it looks like.
How far ahead is it worth looking? Because by the time you get to the third major patch of cloud, presumably it will all be different. I'll
be looking on task as far as the task is, and at wind to what's coming. Quite often I'll be looking, well, I'll be squinting to see what's in the very distance, and also I'll be using close-in cloud analysis to see what's right in front of me as well. The important thing is to pick a target cloud, and then you're routing to the target cloud, and then to always accept better than average lift if you hit it. But you've got to make that decision. If it's, you know, is it better than average lift, and that's where.
But how do you work out what better than average is?
It's all by the feel, and that's something you've got to work on. I think really, and the skill of feeling it. I mean, yeah, if you feel like you're riding 10 knots, it's definitely worth a turn.
I mean, for me, I'm a bit more methodical than that because I don't feel as well as John. But I'll take an average in the start zone, so I won't just, a bit like Dave, like I don't just stay around where the gliders are. I want to sort of pottle off, you know, left and right. I don't just go down track, but I might just go somewhere else and get an overview of the average that I'm getting in the start zone. And I'll be quite calculating on it. If I sample 10 clouds, and you know, sometimes I will write it down and mark it on my phone, and I'll just literally divide the average. I'll be like, oh well, the average is 3 knots. Okay, that's the average of the day. So anything better, I tend to take. If that's right or wrong, that's just how I do it. So, he's really good. I will just say, you can look at a cloud and go, that's 5 knots.
Well, you can work it, yeah.
And I'm like, where are those glasses? I never got a pair of them.
Something I'll try and say is a vario should only tell you what you already know. You should already know what an average. You should go to a cloud and you go, right, I'm expecting 4 knots from this, and you can be thermaling in it and feeling it, and you can feel that average, and then you can look, and then you can see that average. Quite often, people are like, oh, it's not quite. And sometimes it might be your thermaling might be out, and you can just recenter, and you'll find that climb rate. And so working out an average before you get to a cloud is quite helpful, I think. It gives you an idea of, well, it's speed to fly type stuff, isn't it? So knowing what to expect helps a lot, because it's all about confidence of going to the next cloud, and knowing what you're going to climb at the next cloud gives you confidence.
But I think it's good practice, and something that you can just do in local soaring is just look at a cloud and go, I think that's going to give me 6 knots, pop over to it, does it actually give you 6 knots? But like, no, when I've been flying with you in the past and you've been hammering me about it, you know, you'll say I'm expecting 5 knots out of this climb, yet the average just says 4 knots. And I say, I'm just doing my best, I can't. And he takes over and he'll make that average say 5 knots.
Yeah,
so, you know, he'll get an extra knot out of the climb from what I've been getting.
What I've never understood, having flown with John once, I think, on a cross country, how does he know which cloud is actually starting and which one has deteriorated? Because from miles away he was going, go over there. And I'm going, what? What am I going for? And he goes, it's going to be working. By the time we get there, it's going to be working. It's going to be going fantastic. And you get there and it's working fantastic. And you go, now if I do that on my own, I'm going to be ending up, the bloody thing's disappeared and I'm down on the ground. And that's where John has got his magic, I reckon.
But I think a lot of that from when I've flown with Jon is he'll look at what the sky is saying and he'll feel the air. So he's not, whereas some people can be quite impulsive when they feel a push or a pull, Jon isn't. He's very...
We're talking about when to turn.
Yeah, when to like go into the best part of the lift. So a lot of people won't necessarily turn in that best part of the lift and they'll think there's nothing there, but they haven't searched the sky. Yeah. Whereas Jon will feel the air and then he does a lot of this. There's a lot of this thing going on.
You've got to be careful no one's sneaking up behind
and
you.
Then he'll just core the best part of the lift. But I think it's all about being patient and just pausing and really giving a good search of the air rather than just going, I think this is where it is. Oh, it's not there. Now what do I do? Which is what a lot of people do.
No, I was thinking of sort of like cloud deteriorating and cloud starting.
Yeah.
There is a point where they both look the same, and he can pick out which one is building and which one has sort of decayed, and I don't know.
I think that's just picture over a long period of time.
Yeah.
And what Jon's saying is that's why he's looking like on the horizon.
Yeah.
You know, and he will be picking out what part of the sky is deteriorating and what part of the sky is building. Whereas a lot of people don't have the capacity to look that far ahead.
Does he talk about final gliding on here?
Yes.
Are you going to cover working in a band, a height band? I mean, when we talk about intercepting thermals and finding the best ones and so on, and you're saying you're looking a long way ahead, you've got to also consider what height you're going to arrive at the thermal that you want to take. Because some days it's hot as anything, about 2,000, 2,500, and it goes off at 4 or 4.5. And if you keep bobbing along looking at the best clouds at 4.5, you're going to get completely knocked out by the guys underneath you who are going longer glides to lower points to get higher climbs. So there's also the risk factor of mixing it out at that point.
I've never had that issue taking strong climbs and keeping high. I've never had guys skittle underneath me before. I've had people, I've been beat by people that have come over the top of me before, but I've never been beat by somebody that's scudding along. Like you always see that person in the competition. There's always someone down there, and there's a big gaggle.
But if they intercept a strong climb lower down, they're going to do better than you.
Depending how hard they're
pushing.
pushing. They can be, yeah. They
Well,
can
so
be.
this comes back to a debate that we had last year when we were being trained by G Dale, because that's the way he flies. So if you load up any of G Dale's traces, if he puts them on the ladder, fascinating, because he will take very few climbs. And the climbs he does take go from low down all the way to cloud base. Wow. Because that's how he can pick out, because he wants to only get the good lift from when the thermal starts, and he wants to take it all the way up, and he just spends the rest of the time in the glide. So his traces look like this. They're completely uniform, and I don't know how he does it, but
there are some people.
I flew he did a cross country course last year out of Denver, and I flew with him, and he did about half as many times as I did.
Yeah.
I was way fast. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was extraordinary.
There are some people that fly at the ground and bounce back up again to 5,000.
And that's G Dale.
Yeah.
You know, he will go to 1,500 feet because he knows he's going to get the 5-6 knots that will take him all the way back up again. But then part of that.
If you miss it, you're sunk.
Yeah, part of that's confidence in knowing that you're going to get it.
Of course, places like where like last year when you're getting a cloud base of over 6,000 feet plus, or on the Super Sunday when people are getting 10,000 feet plus, you've got to factor in true airspeed as well. If you're flying down low, you're going to be losing a lot of true airspeed, which is the difference between indicated and your actual airspeed, which you probably learn about as you get it. But I reckon you'll probably gain about 15-20 knots a TAS at high altitude that you won't get down at 4,000 feet. Even on a 5,000 foot, you're probably getting quite a little bit extra in true airspeed. What do you reckon, Steve?
It's 1% per 1,000 feet.
So there you go, Steve. You probably get about 5 or 6 knots extra at speed at 4,000 feet than you will lower down, which is all extra bonus, free speed basically.
You mentioned searching around for the best lift. If you come to a very big cloud,
it can be very, very
it can
difficult.
be very difficult to find it. Have you got a strategy that works?
I'll try and. I mean, I've come up to big clouds and gone, this looks amazing. This cloud does. Where on earth do I start? Depending on the day, I really like to work sun shadow edges, especially if the shadow line is kind of like underneath the middle of the cloud. I work around that sun shadow line as best I can. I think that's a good place to start.
So you mean working above the shadow line or working on that edge of the cloud that's producing the shadow
I'll start on the sun shadow line and then I'll work out to the sunny edge if I can, if that's the way I'm kind of going. or I'll take a past experience where the climbs have been on previous clouds. And nowadays, if you can spot gliders, birds, bits of branches floating around, some of these big ones, you normally think bits floating around, can always be a help.
Chinese balloons.
That's it, Chinese balloons. And big, also, sometimes when I'm gliding, I'll see gliders. I always get positive and excited if I see a glider coming out really high, and I'm going to a cloud, and I know they've just climbed up, so I'm like, okay, well, he's got up there, there's a good chance there's a climb still there. Or if there's people coming back same height as you or below you, then I start to see a few warning flags going up there, and I think, okay, well, he hasn't found it.
Yeah.
He hasn't climbed.
The other thing, John, is that on a typical day, generally speaking, if you find that the lift is on the southeast corner of a cloud,
yep,
it'll be on the southeast corner of most clouds.
It can, yeah, that is true.
If the wind and stuff doesn't change.
Yep. But one thing I don't stress, I've been under many great-looking dark clouds, and I don't find anything, which is really disappointing. Don't take ownership of a cloud that you haven't sussed out, because there's many you won't, you just go under and search, and it might just be 3 knots. It could just be the end cycle of that cloud, or the thermal that's making that cloud. So yeah, sometimes you just got to potter onto a fresher-looking cloud, which is frustrating. I've missed, we've all missed climbs.
Everyone can see that, right? Yeah. It's just another little video. So like, there's one thing that I do a lot, is I take videos and photos in flight. Because I mean, I don't have anyone else to ask about decisions that I may have found difficult unless I've taken evidence, and then I go, hey John, what would you have done in this situation? But so if you've got somebody to ask, I always find that really helps, because then I'm actually learning. Because how many times have we actually been in that situation where we've arrived, there's a big blue hole and you're trying to navigate that gap? Like that happens quite often. So I just play this video. I'm literally headed in that direction. The track is pretty much on the yaw string. Yeah. That one. I'll just try and stop it in the middle. Now you've gotten an overview. There you go.
So it's a good day.
It's a good day. There's plenty of choices. So what would people do?
Plough on straight to the turnpike.
20 degrees off track and out onto the next cloud and then edge right.
I mean, there's plenty of energy lines. Are people trying to link up the energy, or they're just planning on just blitzing through and hoping to pick something up?
It does depend on what glider you're in nowadays as well.
Well, that is true. If you're on a bell, you've got to take a few more climbs. If you're in a JS3, Dave, then you probably don't just keep going. But like, this is actually quite a big blue hole here, through here. So, and I'm looking and I'm thinking, and as I get closer, it's bigger than it appears, which happens a lot. I mean, I'm not particularly high. I'm not a cloud base. Probably about 2/3 of the way up. And I mean, you can obviously see there's a route to the right. There's some scraggly, maybe building, decaying clouds to the left, or you just plough straight through. What would people do?
I would expect to climb up at that first cumulus in the screen in the foreground, and then cross.
Okay,
But-
so
Doesn't look amazing.
I searched that cloud,
Yeah.
and there was nothing there.
It's difficult to see on that
Yeah.
tiny picture, but it looks as though there's a roof just slightly around to the right.
Yeah. Hold on. Oh yeah. If I do, yeah, that gives you more of a picture.
It's often the way though, next to a blue hole, the clouds don't work, isn't it? I mean, and that's why there's a blue hole, because it isn't working. So you're almost better off to go further, at least one cloud round to the right in the safer zone.
Yeah.
If there's clouds only 20 degrees off track, I would just have a go at all of them. It gives you more chance, more probability. You don't know which one's going to work. 20 degrees is not going to cost you much in distance. And if you get one good cloud, you're going to make good out of it. You're going to get a result out of it.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
What did you do, Fran?
What did I do? I went round this side, this way in the end.
You didn't go.
I didn't get very good climbs round this side. So, you know, I questioned about that, and I thought maybe that might be slightly decaying. It didn't look much different when I actually arrived at this side. They all looked very similar. Nothing had really, the picture hadn't changed a lot. But I didn't climb well until I got under here.
Yeah, I'd look at that and say, definitely, I'd want a route there. I think, well, some pilots might push through it, but my target clouds would definitely be these fellas here.
Yeah.
Even that one looks nice. You could actually run left, depending where the waypoint is.
Why? What turns you on to those clouds?
Well, I can see these ones in the distance here. These fellas. They're nowhere near as big as these ones. So I've run that, and there's definitely a few there, look, and that links nicely onto that one. But
There are a few to the
I
right.
wasn't
as
there
well.
at the time.
Off screen to the right, there are a few.
Yeah, there's a few over here. But yeah.
Those ones way in the distance do look better, don't they?
John, if that is the case, how do you plan to get to them from this particular point?
At 4,000 feet, which Fran is, I'd almost be confident enough to go straight through the gap. to
Yeah,
those
I
good
didn't
ones.
have that
I thought you
confidence.
said you were 2,000.
No, no,
4,000.
she's at
Two-thirds
four.
of
the way.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, as long as you set the subscale on that.
Yeah, yeah,
which I'm sure.
that.
So what height do you think you're going to arrive at them at about 2,500?
A bit higher than that, maybe.
I'm in an LS8 with water, so I'm not, you know.
It's not messing about.
Well, it's a good enough glider to glide.
Should be on at 75 knots.
So.
It's food for thought, isn't it? Where to go? And also, I'd always be flexible. As you got to that cloud, you've still got three choices: left, right, or straight on. And you don't have to make that decision until you get to that cloud, really. What are you going to do? So trying to keep your options open and not being rigid is always a good call.
But the important thing, John, is to think about it before you get there.
That is true, yeah. So you're thinking about it.
But that tends to be one of my weaknesses in flight, is I don't look far enough ahead. So I have the capacity sometimes to look 3 or 4 clouds ahead. So, you know.
So when you're saying you're looking at those clouds in the distance there, are you actually expecting to get there soon enough to make use of those particular clouds, or are you just thinking
that'd be
that's a
working.
good bit of sky?
That'd be working. Or if the clouds are suggesting to me that that area has got good energy, there's not too much cloud and sun shadow on the ground, so there's no reason why there shouldn't be good energy still cooking up there to give you. I mean, that cloud might have changed, will have changed, but there should still be thermals that are, that sky says it's, to me there says it's good 15 k's in the distance.
So you're looking for an active bit of sky, you're not particularly looking at an individual cloud?
Yeah, it looks quite some good solid darker bases.
But the aim is to cross country, so it's not it's not local soaring. You are going to you're making distance.
What's next, Fran?
The next.
How is everybody? Is everyone all right? Are we?
You're 5 past 7 if you want to do that.
John, are you not considering the life cycle of the individual cloud? I mean, it's the same.
Yeah,
question, really.
yeah.
Because
I always
it's
find
15k away. That's going to be 10 minutes. I don't know.
Yeah.
10 minutes is half the life of a decent.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to be.
long-lived
You're looking
cloud.
at an active area, an area where you can see. Obviously, the thermals are working well, so you've just got to work with it. That it's.
So you may be expecting the next one or another one rather than that actual one.
Yeah. Here you go. Here's another Skype. So we're routing, say, over here. There's your blue hole.
I do these all the time, by the way. And you can do these here, just take a picture of the sky and just talk about it.
What sort of routing would people take here?
Like if I was going right, if that's where I was going, that was my track line, obviously with these clouds.
Where's the wind?
There was no wind on this day.
So how people like to route?
Go right.
You want to go right? Yeah.
Looks like it's quite a big gap to get to that good looking stuff.
Yeah.
The stuff on the far left looks better, I reckon.
Yeah.
It's further. You've got a big blue hole to get through it.
I think I'd go with
What's the about this? You'll say how high am I?
It was about 4.
Oh, maybe I would go left.
This was relatively early, and it did end up spreading out this day. How many people would go right? Hands up.
4,000, you could jump that gap.
How many people go right? Hands up. How many people go left? 50-50 split.
Depends on how high am I.
Yeah, I'd be definitely if I was going over there, that was nice because you've got these edges.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was saying to Fran, definitely I'd go there. It's a bit more of a run. They might perk up. I'd keep a very close eye as I was running there. I'd keep a really close eye on how those edges were doing, but they don't look particularly exciting. But these, especially that bit there and that edge there, gets me quite excited. Or I might run that and go, you know what? I'm close enough. I'm just going to go and plough straight into those ones now. I've got the height and the speed. That's how I'd have run that one.
Yeah, but from the ground there, you're not going to go that far.
That's probably at work.
Barely make it to the next blade of grass.
See, but you can look on the ground. I think all glide pilots they kind of do routes when they're on the ground, don't they? Well, I certainly do anyway.
Is this kind of thing helpful to people?
Yes, very.
I've got loads of these examples. You could do like an hour session just on like discussing.
So being able to fly lower like G does, he will see the holes
You'll
better
see a good picture from lower down.
and earlier. So
Yeah.
is there a benefit from kind of
I think
seeing
you've
these
gotta find your own
decisions
style.
earlier or not really?
I find if you can find a good working band,
Yeah.
Try and stick to it. It's
Right.
try and you'll get a natural feel for the day. There's some days like I find them really unsatisfying where you just can't get to cloud base. You can try and spend hours trying to get to cloud base.
Yeah.
And some guy will just go around in a working band, sometimes like 1,000 foot off cloud base, between 2,000 foot and 3.5.
Wow.
Just and they'll just keep going and going and going, and you think, oh, I'm going to land out in a minute, but you can just somehow keep going.
Like the day we had a sister once was like that.
Yeah, and these people
We never got above 3.5. Never really got below
Well,
2.
You could have if you ground out 1 knot or something, maybe.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
probably, obviously, they just.
The climbs just literally died off. That we were getting
Yeah.
like 3.5 knots. As soon as you took it above 3.5, they'd be gone. And John just kept going. We've got to go. We've got to go. I'm like, oh, I'm not even a climber. This is a long.
But those sort of days will be won by a person that will find 1 or 2 really good climbs that will get them back right up to cloud base, and that'll get them that competitive edge and advantage. And it's knowing that just puts you in good stead in the competition when you've got a competitive advantage. I find anyway, because quite often if you know you've taken that competitive advantage and you know then that you're ahead, or you've got a good feel for how you're doing with the rest of the pack, you don't have to win the day twice sometimes, and you can just steady up a little bit if you know you've really, that one bit's really got you in good position. Anyway.
Any other questions? We'll move on.
Does anybody want to know about thermal centering? Is anybody interested in it? Okay.
I think people would most like to know how you managed to get the best out of the list.
Well, a lot of it's Phil. I think a lot of people talk. I've heard a lot of stories about people saying, "Well, I kept turning, there was nothing, and I turned and there was nothing." And I think that's what that new Vario, is it Hawk? What's it called?
The Hawk, yeah.
Hawk does. It can really help you suss out when not to turn. And I feel that's where a lot of people lose a lot of time and a lot of effort, especially low down. A lot of people will turn and they'll end up sinking, and then they get themselves. Turn and sink will lose you time and altitude. So what do I look for? If I'm feeling a push, I'm feeling, I call it entrained air into the core of the thermal, and I'm feeling for it, and I'll dip a wing, I'll offer a wing into where I think it is, but only gently, and I'll feel if that's still pushing, and if it's still pushing and I'm still feeling it, the moment I feel that is entrained air and it starts to lose on me, it might be a loss of airspeed or a loss out your bum, I'll reject it and I'll carry on. And I'll really wait until I'm being push, and then that's when I'll throw a turn in. You don't get it right all the time, and sometimes you'll throw a whole turn and it just won't, you'll be like, okay. But I've saved myself from a lot of fields by turning at the right time and only committing to a turn when I know it's giving me lift all the way around. Because if you turn when you're low and you're scrabbling around in the weeds and you get synced, you could be in a field before you know it, basically. You've really got to know when to turn at the right time. And am I explaining what to look for well enough?
How do you judge which way to turn? So you feel there's something coming, you
Yeah.
somewhere.
I think turning the right way is all about the more flying you do, the more current you are, the more I think you turn in the right direction.
Do you,
It's a
ever
real
use
current.
do you ever use the yaw? So for the first time ever in all the time I've been flying, I flew with a guy who in a two-seater.
Yeah.
And he kept saying, turn right or turn left.
Yeah.
I go, why? He said, just keep looking ahead. He said, just watch for the yaw.
Ah, okay.
And as the glider rolls, the yaw points
Yeah.
the way you don't want to be going.
Yeah.
And I couldn't see it. I still can't see it, but this guy could.
That's interesting. Well, some guys, some gliders will tell you more than others will. Like the LS8, the LS4, the LS3 is okay. The 19's not so good. But yeah, it's a real feel. And sometimes I suggest people turn too early. Just wait until you positively know you're getting that good push in the climb. And quite often I've turned, and it's bad. Sometimes you realise, oh shoot, I've turned the wrong way and turned back in the other way. But you must be very careful that gliders aren't behind you and turning. You must really now you look at when you're doing that. Because quite often I've turned and other people are like turning, and then you trying to turn back the other way, and you're like, oh, he's turning that way, and then yeah, just gotta be careful. That's what I'm trying to say. Glides routing. Who's had some fun? I guess everyone's had some fun final glides, and everyone's had some tricky ones.
What do you mean by fun final glides?
Well,
You get the person in the back seat sat down in their seat going, we're going to win.
For me, the perfect, I think I've done it with Julian a couple times, the perfect final glide is where you start way below glide and you build it up onto glide and you don't turn. And there's a classic, can you bring up my laptop again, plug it in? Oh, you guys might be. It was the second to last day at the club class. I wrecked it by turning, I think I did 2 turns and climbed 100 feet, and I wrecked what should have been a 110k final glide in the UK. And I was really gutted about it, but I felt that I'd been gliding for so long, I had to turn. It was like, wasn't computing in my brain, but I can't possibly get back from here, I need to turn.
Day 4?
Day 4, yeah.
110 kilometres.
Yeah, I'll show you. I knew it was on, I felt like it could be on as well, and there's a few times as well when you come into a way turn point, I think Dave Rance, we had that one day, and I saw the energy line, and I was like, oh, I really want, and I got myself onto it, and I final glid on it, I glid back, that's not Dave.
This is day 4, do you want day 5?
Oh no, that's the Shennington Regionals.
Oh, right.
The other day.
Oh, it's that day 4. There.
Yeah, that'll be it. It was a horrible day to begin with. Well, it was an amazing day, then it went horrible. So, conditions up here were great, and they sent everything all down here, and I knew it was getting rubbish when I was about here, and here's the track line to these 2 waypoints, and that's the routing I had to take. And I kind of wobbled into the D here, and I started getting rained on, and the LS3 hates rain, so I just immediately, like almost emergency, evacuated out of the area and went to what I hoped was climbs. Struggled. Had to thread my way between Peterborough and Wittering, and then stupidly, I thought, well, because I'm winning the competition, I should try and stay high and not get low. Normally, I would have just plugged through and climbed up there, but I thought, well, I don't want to push it, so I took a few turns in a climb, and it actually took me into Wittering, and I got a 50-point penalty. I was very lucky not to get a 500-point penalty. I think I went in by about 10 or 20 foot. Went round, picked up a great climb here. But
And that's below 2,500 feet, is it, something like that?
Yeah, that was slow. But I was just trying to be not make any mistakes. So yeah. Sorry, I'll just show the. So that was the finish point. If you flick through, is here, Saltby. If you flick through, Fran. Hey, stop. That's a. Whereas that 76.8k glide now. And from here, I'm like, well, I've just come through it. I can go back out on that. And I started to think about the final glide from here. So we're running.
It's here, this little squiggle, isn't it?
No, you're just there. I take a little turn.
0.9 of a knot.
300 feet. Again, I spent 1 minute, nearly 2 minutes, thinking I've got to take a climb because I'm not going to get in. And it was 78 k's before then?
Yeah, 76.
76k, and then a final glide. I do another 41 k's. I hadn't have taken 2 minutes turning. I would have, whatever the maths is, 41 on 76. That's what I should have done. That would have been like the best final glide I could have ever possibly done in the UK, pretty much. Final gliding from south of Oakington East. So yeah, final glides. Try and always do that. But if you can work energy from below glide, that's the crown, the pinnacle, I think, of final gliding. If you can work from below glide coming onto glide, because you always go faster in a straight line on final glide than you will stop turning. It sounds.
So what sort of sky were you doing that under?
It wasn't the best looking sky actually, and there was a gap. That's why I took that little turn. So I started to doubt myself.
Were you running energy lines? Or were you...
Yeah, that was running energy lines. Yeah. You can't climb and glide and work your way onto a final glide. You have to link energy together.
Lots of people tried that day and got stuck over Melton Mowbray, which is about 10k to the west. Lots of people got stuck for 40 minutes circling over Melton Mowbray. So
I got in there a little bit earlier than anyone. It was decaying. I think I went to pick something from a field on that line. It was still there, but decayed. What else? Just give me anyone got any questions about final gliding?
If you want an improving final glide,
yeah,
presumably you need to be early enough in the day that you're not shut down.
Not necessarily, because if it is shut down, as long as you've got the height, the air's generally quite still. It's not often you'll find sink.
But you're not going to get an opportunity to work up to your final glide in those conditions.
That's it, but that'll depend on if you've worked your start time out right. From working backwards, you know when you want to get on glide. So you're still working. Yeah.
Does the 20-degree rule still apply on final glide?
Yeah.
Don't
let a final glide get in the way of good soaring decisions. Is what I always try and say.
Okay, so
and what you'll tend to
fly through the best air within
and
20. Yeah.
As you're turning final glide, you'll be coming down the air column a bit.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you're a lot lower than what you would normally be, but you've still got to try and make those even like 15, 10k out sometimes, especially if you're not quite on glide properly. Yeah. And I'm sure everybody else is using it, but the LD achieved and LD required is also a very good way of final gliding on your PDAs, because you can even put in. I think you can put a daily average LD, and it's something I've been looking at is working on LD and netto, getting the best netto average, because the netto tells you the air that you're in. So the better the total netto average means you've been in the better sort of air, maybe. So something I want to start looking at more is keeping the best netto.
We've got 10 minutes. So
10
we've got to
minutes,
whiz through the next slides.
Well, we've done a bit of that already.
Yeah, so we'll just whiz over post-flight analysis. But obviously, after you've completed your flight, you want to bring it up on CU or CU Cloud and actually go, what did I do? And a lot of the British team, or certainly people I've flown with, they have an Excel spreadsheet and they put in their data based on the flights that they've had. So they'll, if you go on the stats page, obviously you can see like the most important ones, obviously total circling time. John reckons under 25% is good.
Yeah, if you can get under 20.
Rocking it. But again, most of G's flights are like under 20%, so that's pretty good. Obviously total time, percentage then spent in a straight line, what your average glide is, how many glides you do, how many thermals you do, and another stat people tend to record is how long you spend turning left and turning right. I don't know if people look at that. Like, well, Liz anyway, she spent like 75% turning right and only 25% turning left. Obviously, she's probably not feeling the air very well if she's just picking a routine, I'm only going to turn right. So that's something to also have a look for.
Yeah. You know, Rose only turns in one direction.
Does she?
She's incapable of going the other direction.
She's an ambi-turner.
She's not an ambi-turner.
She's not an ambi-turner.
But if you know what your preference is, you can plan your route into the cloud, knowing that you want that you always turn right.
Always like edge to the left of the cloud.
Exactly.
So you can turn right.
Interestingly, although Rose said she turns right 90% of the time, when she looks at the analysis, her fastest climbs are to the left.
Oh, there you go.
And that is because, as she said, because I realised I had to go left because that was clearly the way the best part was.
Yeah, yeah. But again, stats just tell you what was in the past, and it can also give you an idea of whether you're improving. So from an improving perspective, this is something that we do every year, what we do with the team.
And certainly the guys team are a bit on as well.
And then obviously CU Cloud, it does the same thing and it's free, so you don't have to pay for CU if you don't want to. Or for people just starting out, just get yourself a free account, and you can get all this information up. Thumbs up. Competition flying. It's not, if it's your first, it's about having fun. Comps aren't supposed to be stressful.
I see so many people not having a good time, especially on the grid.
Yeah, but grid sitting is a bit of a pain in the arse, isn't it?
It's just before they're going to go flying sometimes. I'm like, it's just, yeah, it is all about having fun at the end of the day.
If anyone's been on like G's courses, he talks about this. That's why he's given up comps, because he just it just stresses him out too much now.
I'm going to Australia this year, and probably on the top of my list is having fun. I've really got to try and keep a track of not getting carried away with myself. Some of the guys in the WhatsApp group already are like, right, tasks, things, and I'm like, whoa. I said, cause I'll fly my best if I'm having fun.
And also when you're having fun, you're not stressing, you think better. Like, your brain's in a much better, much more kind of clarity area. So it's not about winning or losing, it's about participating. And like what we both love about comps, because we're quite time restrained, is everything's done for you. You don't have to do any of this that we've just talked about. Like you get a task, you get a plan, you just go and all we've got to do is get in and fly. It's brilliant. And everyone else is doing the same task, which then makes it fun because you can chat at the end of the day and ask people what they've done, and I don't know, there's quite a lot of like vibes. And don't obsess over the scores. It can ruin a good gliding day. Like I did 122 kph at the Worlds. I've never flown that fast. Basically came last. We all came last. I was like, well, I literally landed and I knew we'd done really bad. And I said, well, I can't say that I've had a bad day. I've had one of the best flying days. I mean, it was that 10,000. It was that 10,000 foot cloud base day. And I was like, yeah, I had a great day. And I just hid from the scores. So I don't want to see those. And you know, if you're out to win, I would say focus on yourself and your own flying and have confidence in your ability, which John's really good at. And turn the radio off.
Yeah.
Like,
I flew the
get rid
club
of
class
it.
with the radio off. I didn't listen to anyone on the radio.
Fly your own game.
Yeah, absolutely. How to do well in comps besides practicing a lot. Get your head in gear and fly against yourself. And don't be put off by too many gliders. A lot of people in comps just get put off by gliders. Obviously that's easier said than done, but obviously to get better at flying with lots of gliders is to go and fly with lots of gliders. And just be okay with being in that gaggle, because on a blue day, there are only gaggles. And then focus on what you can control. So obviously, like we've had the winter, you might have been thinking about your kit, your instruments. You could be thinking about, what comps you're going to fly or crew, whatever it is that you can focus on to sort of take your mind off of those other things. Good planning. Planning's quite key, unless you're someone you can just jump in a glider and you don't mind. But I know lots of people like to make sure everything's all good before they get in the glider. So part of the team training is that we do targeted training. Does anyone know what this is? No? This is what we do every year. And basically what it means is you've got to know your strengths and weaknesses. So it's like basically having a springboard or something that you're very aware of. And we always kind of analyse this before we start the season, go over what our strengths and weaknesses are, so that it's not just about focusing on your weaknesses. Sometimes it's about focusing on what you're really good at, and actually knowing what you're good at when you're low will help you out of that situation. So, John's. We thought we'd share some of ours, so you knew what
Rules of no.
Make it more real. Are you going to just
let's start on the strength. So energy lines and following good energy. Something that I really enjoy doing. It's one of my favourite things to do. Persistence, that certainly helps. Never give in. I think that that crazy day at the club class, I was one of two to get around. Ben went the right way, the sensible soaring way. I just out of sheer persistence.
Yeah, but everyone went home.
Everybody else went home or landed in the field, and I stayed there and waited and waited and waited, waited. It was a bit of an epic, but I got around, and that put me 500 points clear of second place, which is quite unbelievable in the nationals, really. Ability to maintain focus over a long duration. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint, especially if you're in the Worlds, which is 12 14 days.
With the practice week.
Yeah. Foresight, I put that more in terms of looking at the day. Especially in the UK on a cracking day, you can pretty much see the whole task area. I reckon even a 300k, you'll probably be able to see the majority of the task area. And if I can map that out in my mind, I can almost map into a final glide as I'm starting out the task, in some respects. Other times, it's coming in, and there was a day with the club class a few years back, we're bumping clouds, not getting the climbs we were expecting, and the waypoint, the way it was angled, took us almost back to the same direction, but maybe about 20 degrees off. Everyone was barreling on, and I'm like, well, there's a big blue hole to the north of us, and we've got to go northeastwards out. And I thought, well, we've just been under all these clouds for about 35 k's, and there's nothing that's worked, so I just slowed right up, turned, and kept going slow. And I took a weaker climb to get higher, and then I watched this whole pack of gaggle go off, and went straight into a blue hole near Marlborough. Is it near Marlborough? No. What's it by Swindon, south of Swindon?
Oh, that is Marlborough.
Marlborough there. They were right down up in the weeds, and I just cruised over high, and I had the foresight to think, well, we've just come under everything, it's not worked. Just slow up a little bit, change gear, and then, yeah, it worked a treat. I went right up top of them, about 1,500 feet above them, which was quite a nice experience. Another time, again, it's final glides. As you come into a waypoint, looking at the clouds, so about 5 or 10 k's out, when I'm therming, I'll look at the angle of the clouds. So I'm getting used to what the picture of the clouds looks like when I've turned. Quite often you'll turn, and the clouds look completely different to how they've turned. So I'm building up that picture of what the cloud looks like before I've turned, and that's when as I turn, it's not as a complete surprise. And there's nothing. It's weird. You'll be bouncing climbs, thinking that's not working. You look back at the cloud you've bounced and gone, that cloud looks amazing. How have I not found the thermal under that? And different angles, and having the foresight to look around a waypoint and being open enough to see the whole task area, which is quite possible. Like you start off at Husbars, and sometimes you can quite often see Great Malvern and Talgarth, the Black Mountains. So if you can see that far, you can definitely pretty much see a task area. Opportunities, I need to fly more. I'm terrible not flying enough. Sit down and read the rules. That is definitely something I need to do for the Worlds, because competitions and their competition management just love dishing out penalty points. They love, if they can give you penalty points, they will. Believe me, they seem to love it. So anything that can avoid that, or just knowing the rules to gain yourself more points, is a must. Improve instruments and glide performance, that's something I can work on. Weaknesses, spoke about that already. Discipline on strong days. Some of the best guys, like Jake and some of the ones we were talking about this, Don was pushing on, that keeping a straight line, the discipline and when to leave a climb, even if it's just decayed by a couple of, like half a knot or something, that's something I need to really work on. Tactics, that's something I'm going to have to start looking more in the Worlds again. Trying to win the day twice, again, knowing when you've already got that tactical advantage on everybody else, and don't push too hard. Threats, not being ready, too last. That's what that I find really difficult, and also knowing when someone else has got a tactical advantage on me, that really pisses me off as well. I find that quite hard to deal with, and less time nowadays just because I'm so busy with the family.
Does anyone mark this out? Has anyone done this for their own flying? Darcy, that's your homework.
What's yours, Fred?
Well, I'll just go through. I mean, mine is I'm pretty consistent in comps, good at staying airborne, good at thermal centering. Weaknesses, I've not really analysed my glider polar or calculations. I do have a lack of confidence to push to the next climb, so I might take that extra 1 or 2 turns when I shouldn't, in hope. Easily thrown by the competitors quite often, and I'm very indecisive on where to go in AAT. Pretty much every AAT at the Worlds, John said, go that way, and I didn't do it. And the winner went the way John told me to go. Opportunities, get up to speed with glider specs, brush up on weather, cloud streets, convergences, and trust my own decisions and threats. Other competitors, sometimes my own mind gets the better of me.
I think you've got more strengths than that.
Yeah, I mean, this is quite, and this is not going to sound talk about women and men, but I don't know, we find it harder to come up with strengths. It's just something that we do. Easy to be hard on ourselves.
You're in the British team.
Thanks. So like, I'm from my background, this is what I do a lot because I do get more stressed than John in competitive situations, and I'm very competitive. And I like to understand how my own biology works, so I can help almost manipulate my system to think clearer, especially when I'm low down. Because I mean, how often do we get stressed and make poor decisions when we're about to land in a field? Like, it's so easy to not think properly, or it becomes harder to feel the air around us because we're trying to avoid almost the inevitable.
Sometimes the decision is though on a cross-country day is to go and get yourself low, and to have the confidence to be able to get yourself to know that you can go and get low and get out of that situation to get you into the better weather is sometimes the best way. And that's another time to get a tactical advantage on everybody else is by not backtracking to a climb or not taking 50 degrees off, but to go through that blue hole, to go and get to that nice queue and be happy to know in yourself and trust yourself, and to work hard that you can climb away from it and make that decision. And quite often it'll turn out to be nowhere near as bad as you thought it was going to be as well.
Always. So, I mean, just a picture of the brain. So, like, just really quickly, the front part of the brain is what controls our ability to make good decisions and to actually see the big picture and to know what's going on around us. Whereas the back part of the brain, around your occipital lobe, is where our stress response is activated. So naturally, when we're stressed or we find ourselves in a more tricky situation, the blood is going to flow away from the front part of the brain and supply the back part, obviously, that's responsible for getting you out of that situation and surviving, essentially. Which means that obviously we then have less ability to see the big picture, to actually see what's going on, to make good decisions, and just, I mean, tactics is just completely going to go out the window if we're more in stress response or fight or flight. Anyone heard of fight or flight fighting? Yeah. So I mean, there's loads of techniques to obviously relax your stress response, but just a couple that I use. Obviously, breathe out longer than you breathe in. It really stimulates your vagal response and just calms your stress response right down. Breathing slowly and into your tummy. It's really hard to do that in a glider just because of the way we're positioned. So obviously, if breathing into your abdomen is something that helps relax your system, and the way that we're positioned is like this, we're already at a biological disadvantage. Belly laughter, loud singing, supposedly immersing yourself in cold water. You can just throw water over your head. Yeah, quite tricky. Like, shifting your focus and your posture, so actually moving around or loosening your strap so you can open yourself up, really, it does help. So putting it all together, know your met, flight planning, good prep, know your kit, have a go, and just practice. Make sure you definitely fly if you've planned to fly on that day. Fly and get an idea of what's going on, unless it's raining and you've really got it wrong. Final glides. Speed is always going to increase on your glide, so really, focus on that. Don't stress too much about it, but just have a good, fun final glide.
Yep.
Post-flight analysis. We'll always do that on every single flight that you do. If you want to take stats, do it. It really does map out your past performance, and if you're actually getting better, don't worry about other pilots. You only really compete with yourself. Hands up if you've learnt something tonight. Well, that's good. We do have a special bonus. So we wrote during the lockdown a comprehensive guide to how to fly faster. It's actually only been shared with women gliding so far, but I'm going to share it with you guys. It's like 16 points. 16 points that we came up with that will actually help improve your cross-country speed. So I'm actually just going to share it on the WhatsApp group. It's just easy, then you've got it on your phone.
Brilliant.
Along with that other slide. So if you feel like you did receive some value from tonight, then we would really appreciate your help in return. As British team members, we're really only very, very limitedly funded by the BGA, and to fly 2 World Championships this year is it's going to cost an arm and a leg. We've obviously got some savings to put towards it, but any help would be greatly appreciated. And we have now started a crowdfunder just for me and Jon, so this isn't going to be shared with any members of the other women's or the senior team. So I'll just leave that up, which is the QR code.
You could put that on the WhatsApp.
Okay.
If anyone helps, it'd be much appreciated, and hopefully put it to good use. You never know, we might even get some medals if we can get a bit of luck involved as well.
How much do you think it costs to compete in Australia?
So in Australia,
What's the budget?
minus the BGA fees working out to get us there, and I'm going to prove, is 9,600. So the BGA are only part funding.
Each or between you?
No, this is for me and Jon to go out, so I can support Jon.
So it's just for Australia?
Just for Australia. It's going to cost 4,600 for me to get to Spain.
Fran, can you put the link on the WhatsApp when you...
Yeah, I will do.
Yeah. Fran, you clearly need some help because you're at 0 and your target is 6,000.
Yeah, I know. As I said, we have only just started it, so...
You need a bit of a lift.
Thanks, if you don't mind. But yeah, as I said, we've got some savings that we're going to put towards it ourselves, but we do need to raise. I mean, we're going to be saving probably up until Australia.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's expensive to fly. I mean, it's just the way the world's worked. With mine last year was supposed to be in 2021, and then yours is technically supposed to be in 2024, but because it's in Australia, it's obviously in the winter of this year. So it's just 3 in close succession. You know, it's pricey. And
so what do
the BGA have no money anymore.
So what do you fly out there?
So the BGA are funding for Jon, the LS3 to actually...
Yeah, the BGA are funding £15,000 to take the container down there, so they can get 6 gliders in. So there's 2 first 15s metre class, there's 2 for the club class and 2 for the standard class. And they're putting in £400 towards the entry fee, which I think is about half.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Well, interestingly, it's all on the crowdfunder, but the Aerotows for your comp are only €55. But for Spain, they're charging us €75 a tow, which means it's well over €1,100.
And you're going to get a lot of tows.
And I'm going to get a lot of tows because it's Spain.
Weather should be good.
So, yeah, it should be good. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.